Hi, welcome to another episode. There once was a plane that could fly at twice the speed of sound, a jet so fast, so futuristic, that you could watch the sunrise in Paris, sip champagne at 60,000 feet, and land in New York before the same sun had finished rising. This wasn't some Cold War concept. It wasn't a secret military jet. This was a commercial airliner available to the public. It was called the Concorde. And despite being the fastest passenger plane ever built, capable of cruising at over 1,300 miles per hour, today, it's nowhere to be found. It doesn't fly. It doesn't even have a successor. So what happened? Why did this marvel of human innovation vanish? This is the story of ambition, achievement, and ultimately, the quiet death of a technological dream. In the 1950s and 60s, the world was obsessed with speed. The space race was in full swing, jet engines were evolving rapidly, and the idea of supersonic flight was no longer limited to fighter jets. By 1962, Britain and France signed an agreement to build a plane that could cruise faster than Mach 2. They would call it Concorde, meaning harmony. What followed was a grueling, complex, and eye-wateringly expensive engineering endeavor. It took over 14 years of collaboration, 2 million parts, and a staggering $1.3 billion to bring Concorde to life, more than $10 billion in today's money. Its features were unlike anything seen before: a thin delta wing design, a drooping nose for visibility during landing, 4 turbojet engines capable of withstanding supersonic speeds, and a fuselage that physically expanded during flight due to the extreme heat of air friction. Every detail of Concorde screamed innovation. It wasn't just a plane, it was a symbol of human progress. When Concorde entered service in 1976, it changed the perception of air travel forever. Inside, it was cramped, just 100 seats in a narrow fuselage. But what passengers lost in legroom, they gained in prestige. The cabin was catered like a 5-star restaurant, and the clientele included celebrities, CEOs, and royalty. But the real luxury was time. A typical London to New York flight took just under 3 hours. Compare that to the 7 to 8 hours of a standard flight today. You could literally leave London after lunch and arrive in Manhattan in time for dinner, and still be back home before midnight if you wanted. From 60,000 feet, the Earth looked curved and the sky turned dark blue. You were flying faster than the rotation of the Earth, covering a mile every 2.5 seconds. And then there was the sonic boom, a literal crack in the sky. It sounded like thunder erupting behind the aircraft as it broke the sound barrier. But this boom, while thrilling for some, would be one of Concorde's many Achilles' heels. Soon after Concorde's introduction, problems began to emerge. The first was the noise. Communities beneath its flight path complained. The sonic boom was so loud that many countries, including the United States, banned supersonic flights over land. This effectively reduced Concorde's viable routes to only transoceanic flights, mostly between Europe and the US East Coast. Then there was the cost. Flying Concorde was financially unsustainable. It burned fuel at an astonishing rate, more than 1 ton every 6 minutes. Its engines were powerful, but thirsty. Every flight cost tens of thousands of dollars to operate, and maintenance was constant. Because of this, only 2 airlines ever flew Concorde: British Airways and Air France. The rest of the world opted out, citing high costs, limited utility, and environmental concerns. By the 1980s, the dream of supersonic travel had become a niche reality: beautiful, exciting, but economically flawed. Everything changed on one tragic day. On July 25, 2000, Air France Flight 4590 began its takeoff roll in Paris. Just seconds into acceleration, the Concorde ran over a small metal strip that had fallen off another plane. A tire burst. Rubber fragments shot into the fuel tank. The tank ruptured and caught fire. The aircraft, already at high speed, was now engulfed in flames. With two engines failing, the pilots tried to turn around, but it was too late. The plane crashed into a hotel, killing all 109 people on board, as well as 4 on the ground. It was the first and only fatal accident in Concorde's history. But it was enough to cast a shadow over the program. The Concorde fleet was grounded. Safety overhauls were performed. The planes did return to service in 2001, but the damage had been done, both physically and reputationally. And then came September 11th. Air travel plummeted, global priorities shifted, and demand for elite luxury travel all but evaporated. By 2003, both British Airways and Air France announced the retirement of Concorde. The final flight landed on October 24, 2003, greeted by thousands of spectators and a flood of emotions. It was the end of a 27-year era. So why haven't we replaced it? It's a mix of factors: environmental concerns, economic impracticality, political regulations, and engineering complexity. Concorde flew in an era where ambition often outpaced sustainability. It was loud, expensive, and served a small, privileged market. And yet, despite all that, it worked. It did what no other passenger aircraft has done, before or since. No current commercial plane even comes close. Today, all remaining Concordes are grounded, displayed in museums across the globe. You can visit them, admire their elegant curves, and imagine what it must have been like to cruise at the edge of space. But maybe Concorde was simply ahead of its time. Companies like Boom Supersonic and NASA are now working on quieter, more efficient supersonic aircraft. These jets aim to reduce the boom, increase fuel efficiency, and reopen the dream of high-speed travel. But so far, these are only promises. The dream lives on in prototypes, renderings, and press releases, but not in the skies. The Concorde is a story of beauty and limitation, of engineering that defied the ordinary, but couldn't overcome the practical. It proved what was possible and what wasn't. In the end, the Concorde wasn't just a plane. It was a symbol of a time when humanity believed that speed was the future, and that no dream was too big to fly. Cheers for watching.